Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the final video on our series on transformative dialogue, where we'll be covering the last pillar of transformative dialogue, which is complexity, cultivating complexity of our understanding of issues that could in reality be very complex, but tend to be oversimplified and turned into a black and white way of thinking about it in our kind of polarized climate. So why is complexity important? Well, studies have shown that people who can think about polarized topics with more complexity are better in dialogue and are less polarizing and are less kind of dogmatic in how they approach these topics. So cultivating complexity is a very powerful tool in de-escalation and depolarization and is conducive to more productive dialogue. And there have been different studies that show that if an issue is framed, take an issue like abortion, which is a very polarizing topic, if the issue is framed with less complexity, the dialogue between two different sides goes worse. If the issue is framed with more complexity, the dialogue between two different sides goes much better. So what are different elements of complexity, right? If we're going to ask someone questions to help cultivate a more complex form of thinking about the topic, what are some qualities of complexity? Well, to start with, complexity involves being able to see the issue from more perspectives and more angles. It's about expanding your scope of understanding of the issue to think about other variables or contexts that might feed into or contribute to or inform the issue in some way. Complexity could involve softening rigid dichotomies or rigid boundaries that we erect in our minds when we think about an issue, but in reality, life is much more fluid and there are more gray areas. So how do we ask questions to tease out these gray areas and to look at all of the uncertainties that exist and to put those onto the table as part of complexifying, so to speak, our understanding of an issue and therefore how we talk about an issue. So some questions that I'd like to ask people to cultivate more complexity is what are some other factors or variables or contexts that feed into this issue that we haven't discussed yet, right? So if we're talking about the complex issue of income inequality between different groups, right? What are all of the variables that lead to unequal outcomes? So instead of just doubling down on our own partisan set of variables, we can expand the pie to think of more factors, right? You can throw in specific examples, like even something like polarization, like what role does social media play in driving political polarization? What role does culture play? What role does Congress play and electoral politics play? Right? What are other systemic drivers of polarization? So we're just getting on the table more factors that paint a more broad and complex picture of the situation. Another way to cultivate complexity is to ask for the relationship between two different things. So if someone makes a comment, let's say about education and problems in education, you could say, well, how does education relate to culture and how does that relate to what's happening politically and how does that relate to the specific geographic history of that area, right? So you're bringing more things on board and you're teasing out more relational connections, which helps to change people's brains and neural structures so that we form new associations around the topic and kind of cut through our polarizing thinking about the topic. You can also challenge what rigid dichotomies that people that come up. So if someone says, it's really about the people versus the elites, right? And so it appears that there are two binary categories. There's the people and there's the elites. So you could say, what constitutes being part of the people and what does it mean to be part of the elite? Is it based on your income? Is it based on your position in government? Right? What does it mean to be an elite? Is it measured by your sphere of influence? What about prominent social media creators who are very influential, but in an alternative media space and not on CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, right? So you're blurring boundaries and drawing out more gray areas. This is what complex types of questions can do. You can also ask perspective taking questions, and there's a reason why this is the last video in the series because perspective taking questions can be really powerful, but you have to wait till the right time to ask them. You don't want to start a conversation asking perspective taking questions before the person feels acknowledged and affirmed in their own view. So a perspective taking question would be something like, what do you think this issue looks like through the eyes of people you disagree with, right? Why do you think the other side values or takes the opposite position as you do, right? It could be if you had to be face to face with the person or group that you think is most dangerous for the country, what would you tell them? And what do you think? How do you think the world looks like through their eyes? So you're getting the person to take another perspective And again, you have to wait till the right time to do this. But if you are able to pull this off, it's a really powerful way of just expanding people's understanding of the issue that in turn helps to change their disposition or attitude towards the issue. It helps to shift our relationship towards the issue when we are think about it in a less black and white, rigid, oversimplified way. All right, thanks so much for tuning into this series, and hope to see you again soon.